This is Think Out Loud on OPB. I'm Jeff Norcross. There's a high-end resort planned for Central Oregon. It's called the Thornburgh Resort. When built, it will have nearly 1,000 homes, golf courses, and a luxury hotel, among other offerings. If the name of this proposed development sounds familiar, it might be because it's been in the works for over 20 years. Developer Kameron Delashmutt first proposed the Thornburgh Resort in 2005. For the next 21 years, Delashmutt says he has faced delay after delay. He says Oregon's regulatory framework is a big part of the problem. I spoke with Kameron Delashmutt earlier this week, and I started by asking him to describe his vision in a little more detail.
Well, we sit on the south and west-facing slopes of Klein Buttes, kind of in a little triangle between Redmond, Bend, and Sisters. The property's got 700 foot of elevation change, and as you kind of come down rolling hills, we've got thousands of thousand-year-old juniper trees that we're super protective of. Lots of rock outcroppings, really unique character to the land. And on this, we're going to build the destination resort that is permitted under Oregon's Goal 8 to promote tourism, housing, and it will be what we believe will be the first truly luxury project in the state of Oregon. A five-star high-end development that serves both with housing, hotel, lodging components, spa, fitness, golf, all of which we intend to do very well with a high level of care and comfort.
You speak about the land lovingly, and just to be sure, it used to belong to your grandparents, didn't it?
The bulk of it did. About 1,400 acres of it belonged to my grandparents. They bought it in 1953 for $5,000 and 35 yearling heifers, and used it after that as part of their summer pasture in their commercial cattle operation. They would bring cows on site towards the end of April. They ran 1,000 mother cows at their peak, and they would put them here for a couple of months until it got too hot and the grass was gone, and then they'd move them elsewhere. And so for I guess close to 50 years or so, my grandparents, a little over 50 years, they would use it as their summer pasture for a couple of months a year.
You first applied for permission to build this resort over 20 years ago. I know the answer is very complicated, but basically speaking, why isn't it getting built?
Well, that's a really complicated answer, but in general, it falls down to the regulatory structure in the state of Oregon. Permitting these is a multiple stage process. So you go through a conceptual master plan, a final master plan, and then every time you go to do a subdivision or an amenity, you've got to do tentative plans or site plans. And at every one of those steps, we have had just an onslaught of opposition, really, kind of emanates from one group. And just everything that we do, there's multiple appeals on everything. Our conceptual master plan was filed in 2005, and it took us until 2009 to get that approved. We filed the final master plan, I believe, in 2007, and got that finally approved in 2018. So it's just ongoing, and kind of every one of these appeals, you get the first one, and then you can do the second one, and then you can do the third, and it's just been ongoing. And to date, we have somewhere in the range of 90 separate appeals that we have fought through and prevailed on.
Do you feel that any of those groups or those citizens that stepped up to oppose your project or to appeal the project, do you feel they did so in bad faith?
Oh, completely. Yes. And to give you just an example, I mean, we have reached out on numerous occasions, in numerous occasions, numerous ways with opponents to say, hey, let's let's sit down and talk about what's important to you, what we can do to, modify, change, amend, and come up with a way that makes things palatable and works for you and really kind of takes care of things that are most critical in your mind. And we've been rebuffed at every single one of those. I mean, just completely and totally. And I think, what would work would be, for me to go away and not do anything, so it's kind of an all or nothing. I mean, I'll fight you to death kind of thing.
There's also a regulatory part of this, and I'd like to talk about water a little bit just to illustrate this issue. The Oregon Department of Water Resources said your proposed water use for construction would likely not be, quote, within the capacity of the resource, and the resource being groundwater in the Deschutes Basin. A county judge agreed with that last year. I bring this up because I wonder if you feel like state agents like the ODWR are operating within regulations that are unreasonable.
Oh, completely. I mean, the department, Water Resources, was developed to effectively, kind of oversee and manage water, and really, it was to do so in the guise of maintaining kind of growth and development and aiding with economic growth and development, and it instead, I mean, it has turned and it's become what I believe is a highly ideological organization that is focused on no instead of how. I think, in many cases, and I can, we have an extension case on a water rights permit that was granted us in 2000 and applied for in 2005, granted in 2008, I believe. And that extension case really kind of highlights where the department is, we believe, far outside of their statutory authority. And that's not the only case. I think it happens over and over again. One of the things, you cite the capacity of the resource. The Deschutes Basin is a massive aquifer, and it covers some 4,500 square miles with a average depth of 1,000 to 1,300 feet. So if you just kind of figure that, there's a water bearing zone in there that's 1,000 feet deep on 4,500 square miles, I mean, that is a really, really big area. And at about the same time, literally at the exact same time as that case that you're referring to was going on, the University of Oregon and Oregon State, a total of 6 universities, the USGS, the U.S. Forest Service, environmental and academic organizations came out with the results of a study that had been going on, and says that we have this massive aquifer that is 19.5 cubic miles and 65 trillion acre feet of water. And they refer to it as a continental size lake underground. And so from a scientific standpoint, water resources look simply at a decline and the amount of decline in a particular area to determine the capacity of the resource without even assessing or considering the actual capacity of the resource or how much water there is. It's the strangest thing that I've ever seen.
How does Oregon compare to other states when it comes to the ease of getting projects like these built?
I think, it's not just projects like this, but it's industrial projects. It's all sorts of projects. So in the state of Washington, for example, to appeal in the state of Washington, you have to have standing. So if you wanted to appeal a housing development that was 5 miles away from your house because you thought that it's an area that you go to and you hike or you like something, you would have to show that you were damaged to be able to appeal, and that's standing. You would have to directly show that you had been negatively impacted. And in Oregon, you don't have to do that. And what happens is it's given rise to this group of what I call professional litigation organizations that exist solely to be opponents. And they have, teams and hordes of lawyers that just kind of go out and they appeal projects and they appeal different things, and they do it at water law or wildlife or land use. And they don't have to show that they're damaged. They make this general statement that some public is damaged, but it's not them, and they get donations, and so it's they're using other people's money to fight. And when they lose, there is no ramifications, there is no attorney's fees, there is no anything, and that's a huge thing. In land use, you have to, as a developer, I am considered to be guilty until I prove that I'm innocent, so to speak. In a civil case, you're assumed to be innocent until the prosecutor shows that you're guilty, and it's so we have this higher burden of proof, but then we get laid on all of these different, layered regulatories, and anybody can appeal. I mean, you file 125, for $125, you file your appeal, and it delays us for 6 months or a year, or if it's the Court of Appeals, it's a year or it's 2 years. It can go on and it can go on.
Yeah, I'm wondering how you think. You probably have a lot of thoughts about this, but how you think Oregon's regulatory structure should change, and what could happen now? What's the lowest hanging fruit?
Well, I think the appellate process for land use, if that was changed, where you had to have standing, or when you lose, you had I could give somebody a bill to pay my attorney's fees. So if you appeal and you lose and you get a $75,000 bill, you probably think about that the next time that you appeal. So that would be a huge thing. If you had to have standing, it would be great. If there was some coordination between land use and water law, where once you have land use, you eliminate some of the battles in water. And what we have instead is we have, the Department of Transportation, the Department of Water Resources. We have all these different things, and you got to independently kind of do it. And they all have different timelines and time frames. If the regulatory process could be more consistent and more stable, where the rules didn't change, and that's so I mentioned that we've got a permit that was issued in 2008, and kind of we go through, and the rules change, and the rules change, and the rules change. And so you really never know what you're dealing with until you kind of get so far down the process. And it's just, it's such a burdensome thing that when your investment becomes, millions of dollars, you look and say, well, do I make that kind of investment in the state of Oregon, or do I make it someplace else? And in housing in general, there should be a process that just kind of streamlines and green lights housing, because we have such an acute housing shortage in the state of Oregon. And really that is a symptom of the regulatory process. And unless we get a hold of housing and we can provide people houses, it's hard to create jobs if we can't house people and do it, at an effective cost or something. I mean, our cost of capital is high, our cost of insurance is high, our cost of materials are high, and our cost of land is high. I mean, all of these things, particularly, today, affordable housing is this huge buzzword. And with the costs that we have to bear and the risk that we have to bear, it's almost like there can be no such thing as affordable housing without government subsidies. And we need to get a handle on kind of all of these things that are creating this problem.
You've been fighting for the Thornburgh Resort for 21 years now. Why are you so adamant about getting it built and building it there in Central Oregon?
Well, uh, 4 generations of my family have been kind of traipsing up and down these hills and, chasing the dirty end of a cow to begin with. So it has a tremendous amount of family history for me. The name Thornburgh itself, my mother's maiden name is Thornburgh. So Everett and Eva Thornburgh were my grandparents. So there is that, and then the other side of it is just kind of the justice part of it. I set out to do it, and I just think it's flat wrong that the system can be so completely and utterly abused to stop somebody. And at this point, we're so close to starting construction. I've got a golf course that's fully shaped and routed. We've got roads that are started. An irrigation lake is going in. Our water system has been installed, and the time to quit was probably in 2009 to 2012 or 13, and
Yeah.
When the economy was terrible, but kind of the outlook. And I love Central Oregon. We call it home, and it's been home for a long time. So a whole lot of reasons that kind of at the core. I mean, I've got a fair amount of perseverance as well. So I'm not likely to give up now. So
For sure. Kameron Delashmutt, thank you so much for the time. I appreciate it.
All right, take care.
Kameron Delashmutt is the manager and founder of the Thornburgh Resort in Central Oregon. We spoke earlier this week, and you can find more of OPB's reporting on Delashmutt's efforts to get that resort built at our website, opb.org. Finally today, producer Rolly Hernandez joins me to read some of your recent feedback. Rolly, hi.
Hey, Jeff. A few weeks ago, we discussed the $10 million budget gap that Portland Public Schools discovered earlier this year, and the announcement that it may close 5 to 10 of its schools by the year 2027.
KJ Parada wrote on Facebook, "Worried about my school," with a frowning emoji. And Marty Clan wrote, "Whatever is going on with Oregon's funding for education has become a travesty."
Caddy Paxton Williams said, "The core issue is that the Oregon legislature has underfunded K-12 public education by 20% or more per biennium since the 1990s. Meanwhile, the state has added unfunded mandates through both the legislative and initiative processes, plus the various federal mandates like No Child Left Behind."
Kathy went on to say the state school districts have been trying to do it all on 80% of actual need since at least the establishment of the quality education model, if not before, since the passage of Measure 5 in 1990. Yes, PPS somehow bungled the accounting for the current gap. Yes, the district needs an independent audit. But what all public schools in Oregon need is to be fully funded, if not more so, to offset 30-plus years of underfunding. A note, I am recently retired educator, and I spent the bulk of my career with PPS.
Earlier this month, Think Out Loud discussed the new Foster Kids Bill of Rights, legislation featuring new protections for foster children that passed in Oregon's recent short session. Katie Schatzel wrote on Facebook, "As a former foster child, the fact that this took this long is crazy. The whole system needs to be rebuilt. Children should not be getting lost in this system."
Cassie Ware said, "Great. Now overhaul the system that is keeping these kids away from their parents. Oregon has one of the longest times before return in the country. It's hell for families."
Robin Colbeck asked, "But will the legislature actually fund what these kids and their foster and adoptive families need? They lack funds for even the basics of these children right now, despite caseworkers who desperately want to help children." The Washington State Legislature wrapped up its short session on March 12th. Lawmakers passed a new state income tax of nearly 10% on households earning more than $1 million annually. And we asked listeners what they thought.
Rick Hines said, "Seems anti-American to me."
Brennan Swan wrote, "Not nearly enough. Need even steeper rates as annual income increases."
Athena Contreras said, "All great, but the way the money is used matters too. if it goes to private companies without public oversight, like preschool for all money, a similar tax structure, went to private daycares without oversight, then that would really not be good either.
Noema Crandwell wrote, "The wealthy will simply find or invent new loopholes. This will likely be appealed by those impacted with very deep pockets." Steve Pearson also commented and said, "On principle, I am opposed to taxes that are laid on some, especially on a minority, and not on others. In my view, anything that we collectively decide is reasonable to be taxed should be taxed at the same rate for everyone."
Steve went on to say, "I do allow for an exception for a small fraction of the populace with the lowest economic means. Otherwise, a flat tax on all is fair. The wealthy will presumably pay more under such taxes due to having higher amounts of whatever is being taxed. I can't think of any other minority that we think it is okay to tax while not taxing others."
Finally, Dina Roberts said, "Long time coming, but a good start."
Okay, last week we asked people on Facebook to tell us how they're navigating the rise in misinformation in recent years.
Brett Howell commented, "There was once a quite foundational comfort in the shared reality, a baseline of facts that served as a town square where even the fiercest of rivals could meet. You could argue the why and how, but the what was rarely in question."
He went on to say, "Today there's nobody left in the town square. We've all retreated to our silos, and breaking through those silos is proving to be an impossible task. Few individuals feel compelled to cite sources anymore, and the rare individuals who do are often told, well, those are your facts, but mine are different. There is a profound loneliness in this collective loss of reality. We are somehow both more connected than ever and further apart than ever."
Jill Rogers commented, "First and foremost, a deep and absolute fury. Otherwise, I amplify reliable and independent journalism and support OPB."
Thank you, Jill. Adrian Haas also commented, "Don't bother with it. Mostly it's pretty apparent when something is malarkey, but even still, stay away and keep my head up. Not worth the energy and time to stress over that garbage."
Springtime is upon us, and it's just about that time to get back in the garden. We spoke just this week with Dusty Arab, the owner of Vancouver Micro Nursery, who says everyone can and should grow their own food. We asked listeners on Facebook, what food do you grow in your garden and why?
Stacey Humphrey commented, "I have a small urban lot in Portland with my kiddo, and as a person in the ADU in the backyard. Together we raise hens, about 2.5 dozen eggs a week, have enough berries to make jam, to eat all year, plus pies, smoothies, grow enough tomatoes to make freezer spaghetti sauce, have a variety of fresh herbs, including basil for seasonal pesto sauce, and grow salad greens, green beans, etc. As to why, it feels really good to be connected to where my food comes from. I enjoy transforming berries to jams and the like, and allows me to be more attuned to natural cycles."
And Jamie Henson said, "I grow as much as possible. Tomatoes, lettuce, onions, etc. We had a garden growing up. We were taught that providing for yourself and your family is part of life. We hunt, fish, and grow our own food. There's nothing better than a carrot straight from the garden." We always welcome your comments and questions in any form. Our voicemail is 503-293-1983.
You can also reach us by email. Our address is thinkoutloud@opb.org. On Facebook, we're at OPBTOL. Thank you, Rolly.
You're welcome, Jeff.
Tomorrow on the show, we'll hear more about Father Tom Odo. He served as the president of the University of Portland from 1982 until his death in 1989. Before coming to UP, he was a key member of the gay rights movement, advocating for the full inclusion of LGBTQ Catholics in the church. We'll talk with the author of a new biography. Our production staff includes Malia Foss, Rolly Hernandez, Gemma DiCarlo, senior producer Allison Frost, and managing producer Shiraz Sadiq. Naleen Silva and Layla Isbel engineer the show from the Gert Boyle studio. Our technical director is Stephen Cray. Our executive producer is Sage Van Wing. I'm Jeff Norcross. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great day.
Think Out Loud is supported by Stephen Jan Oliva, the Rose E. Tucker Charitable Trust, Ray and Marilyn Johnson, the Susan Hammer Fund of Oregon Community Foundation, and Lang Svengard Family Fund.